Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpendra Singh and we are going to start with our NCRT classes. Okay, so these classes are basically meant for those students who are preparing for the civil services examinations as well as other government competitive examinations which require the basic understanding of the knowledge regarding various subjects of the general studies. Okay, like geography, history, economics, polity, governance, right, science and technology. So here this program is meant for those students who require to brush up their basics regarding the general studies. So we are basically gave you this program right on behalf of this Future IAS Academy, where we are bringing you the classes based on the NCRT books. Okay, and we are going to cover one by one of these books, right, for those students who require, right, the basic understanding of these books. So we have already covered the sixth standard geography and the history. We have covered the seventh standard history, and now we are in the process of finishing up your seventh standard geography. Okay, so uh, this course is for those students who basically you know brushing up their concepts, basic concepts through the geography classes, all right, or through the NCRT classes. So myself Pushpendra Singh, and we are going to start with our the NCRT class today. Okay, all right, so let's understand the domain of the water. As we know, the domain of water is basically called hydrosphere. Okay, that we have studied in our last class. Okay, now what happens is to this water. Okay, water has the different states. For example, it may have the liquid, it may have the vapor state, it may have the solid state also, like ice. Okay, so it may have the different states also. Okay, but what is the main cause behind the evaporation of the water? Okay, the main cause is basically sun's heat. So sun's heat or the insolation. Okay, the insolation is the basically the responsible for the evaporation of the water, right? The evaporation of the water converts the water into water vapor. Okay, now what happens is there is a process called formation of the clouds. Okay, so the formation of the clouds basically happens through the process called condensation. Okay, so what happens is, let's understand, this is the water body. Okay, and here you have the water body. Now what happens is, due to this insolation, right, it is the sun, and due to this insolation, okay, the water basically converted into water vapor. Okay, so here you have the water vapor. This water vapor basically in the form of your convectional currents. Okay, so this will basically rise up. This will rise up, and ultimately it will cools down. Okay, it will cools down and it reaches to its saturation. Okay, where it can no more hold the water. Okay, at that point of the time, it basically condense, right? So condensation means it basically converted into the small water droplets. Okay, in the form of cloud, in the form of clouds. Okay, now what happens is, this cloud consisting of the water droplets, but you must understand, these water droplets does not have the required weight to fall down under the impact of gravity. So it will just, or these water droplets, tiny millions of the water droplets basically just float, right, in the atmosphere as a cloud, right? and and when these drops basically meet to each other through the process called coalescence, right, these droplets become large enough to fall down under the impact of gravity. Okay, so there you have the different forms of precipitation. Okay, these different form of the precipitation may be in the form of rainfall that may fall on the land or the sea, or you may have the different forms like sleet, like snowfall, and etc. You may have the hailstorm. Different type of form will be there. Okay, so they are the different forms of your precipitation. All right, so here the process by which the water continuously changes its form, right, from water to its vapor form, from vapor to again liquid form, and then from there it falls down as a either snowy form or water droplets form, or whatever maybe the form may be there, right? This form continuously circulates, right, between the oceans to the atmosphere, from atmosphere to the land, and then from land again to the ocean, because there is a terrestrial movement of the water also from the land to water bodies, let's say from the ocean. Okay, so here the water basically circulate between the ocean. From there there is evaporation, right? And then ultimately it reaches to atmosphere, right, as a water vapor. From there it convert into, the liquid form as small water droplets after condensation. From there the rainfall occur and reaches to the land. From land again reaches to the ocean through the terrestrial movement of the water, right? So this cycle is called basically hydrological cycle. This cycle is basically called hydrological cycle. Hydrological cycle means the movement of the water in the cyclic form from ocean to the atmosphere, from atmosphere to the land, and from then again land to the ocean, and from ocean to again atmosphere. And this process would again continue. This process would again continue, right, in this fashion. Okay, so our Earth is like a terra aquarium, right, which consists of lot of water, right? But you must understand the major source of fresh water are basically very few, very few. Like rivers, rivers is a plenty of source of the fresh water, but its quantity is comparatively lesser when you compare with the ocean, the ponds, the springs, the glaciers. So these four are the principal source of, your fresh water. Apart from that, you may also have the groundwater also. Okay, the groundwater, we are now much more dependent on the groundwater also for our water supply. All right, and the ocean bodies and the sea basically contains mainly salty water, where the salinity of the water, right, the salinity of the water is much more. Okay, right? For example, there is a salinity of water called 34 to 35 parts per thousand. This salinity, we cannot drink this water, or we cannot use this water as a potable use. So it is of no use, right, if the salinity is that much higher. All right, now let's understand the distribution of the water on the earth. Okay, so distribution of the water on the earth, you must understand first of all the three-fourth of the water, the three-fourth of the water, right, is covered by, or three-fourth of the earth's surface is basically covered by the water. Okay, so that means in the three-fourth part of the earth there is predominantly water, but this water is salty because it is mainly covered by the oceans, which covered around 75% of our earth's surface. That means three-fourth of the land is basically covered by, you know by the water. Okay, now the water is the most vital, right, for the survival of the human beings, for the plants, for the animals. So it is absolutely essential for the survival. All right, and the following table I am going to show you in my next slide, the relative distribution of the water in terms of its percentage. It will be shown in the slide, so you can also check it out. For example, the earth water, right, for example, you see earth water. So out of total global water, so this is basically taken from the US Geological Survey, right, the records. So here you see the total global water. I said the oceans consist of 96.5% of total global water. Okay, and fresh water basically consists of around 25% of the total water, right? So fresh water basically consisting of the 2.5% of the total water, right? Other saline water consisting of 0.9%. So you say around 97% basically consisting of the salty water or the saline water. We cannot use that water unless we have the desalination technology or desalination plant, which is very costly. Okay, out of this 2.5%, the second diagram shows you that out of this 2.5%, the glaciers and the ice caps both combinedly have the 68.7%. So that means if you take this fresh water, okay, if you take this fresh water, so I would say this much or 68.7% consisting of the glaciers and ice caps. Okay, the groundwater again consisting of, this is your groundwater, this is consisting of around 30%. So it is groundwater. Okay, and remaining is basically 1.2% is basically your surface water. Okay, surface water in the form of your pond, okay, in the form of your rivers. Okay, so you have different sources of surface water which are available on the surface. Okay, So you see around 70% lies in the glaciers on the ice caps, which are again of no use. The groundwater is consisting of 30%, which we can use. The surface water again consisting of only 1.2%. Okay. Now, if you take this surface or the fresh water, okay, so here out of this 1.2%, which is available on the surface water, right, the lakes consisting of 20.9%, the ground ice and the permafrost means the top layer, which is basically frozen, right, which is found basically in the tundra region, right, in the higher altitudinal regions. So this ground ice and the permafrost basically consisting of around 69%, around 69%. All right. It is consisting of around 69%. All right. So here you must understand, and then remaining, out of remaining atmosphere consisting of around 3% of the water of the out of this 1.2%. Okay. Then living things consisting of 0.26%, rivers only 0.449%, the swamps and the marshes 2.6%, soil moisture again 3.8%. So this is relative distribution of the water on the earth, on the on the earth, you can see, right. So you can see basically from this chart around 97% of the water we cannot use because it is saline water. From this chart, out of 2.5%, 68% we cannot use because it is permanently in the glaciers and the ice caps. Remaining around 32% we can use from the groundwater as well as from the surface water. Out of surface water, you can check it out. It is 69% around ground ice and the permafrost, lakes consisting of 20.9. Then remaining consisting of the soil moisture 3.8%, atmosphere 3%, the swamp masses 2.6%, and etc. So they are, so this is basically a relative distribution. Okay, let's understand the movement of the water. So unless calm water, you have like ponds and the lakes where the water do not flow, right, because ponds and lakes are having the restricted the space or area where the water cannot flow, right. But the oceans, which is very very vast, so this water basically move in the form of currents. So you have the ocean currents, right. So the movement of those currents basically occur in the oceans, right. So this movement, apart from the ocean currents, you have another set of movement like in the form of waves, the another set of movements like tides and the currents. Okay, so these are the principal three types of movement through which the ocean water can be flow. So first we will learn about the waves. Okay, so waves basically, you must understand, you have seen also the surface of the ocean. Okay, so what happens is the water basically in the surface, on the surface of the ocean, it rises and it falls, it rises and it falls. Okay, so something like that you have seen. Okay, so it rises and falls, it rises, it falls, it rises, it falls. So that ultimately forms the water wave. Okay, so that ultimately forms a water wave. So it is basically the water on the surface of the ocean which rises and the falls alternatively. So rising, falling, rising, falling. So this alternative movement of the water on the surface of the ocean, it is called in the form of waves. Okay, so an earthquakes, volcanic eruption, underwater landslides, right, can shift a large amount of ocean water. So what happens is, you might have heard also the tsunami which occurred, right, and which also impacted the India because of tsunami. So what happens is, right, there is the there are different phenomena, or the geophenomena, like earthquakes. For example, if the earthquakes focus, okay, or epicenter lies in the oceanic region, for example here this is the ocean, okay, and now let's say earthquakes occur over there, okay, which causes the water to be displaced, because this earthquakes occur because of this relative movement of the plates of the where the oceanic lithosphere lies. So where what happens is, large amount of water will be, or large amount of water column will be displaced from this location, and this has caused, right, a wave or very large amount of wavelength of these waves, which basically bring enormous amount of water to this to the land, right, or to the nearby coastal area, which causes inundation and lot of devastation. And this wave is called basically tsunami wave, right? The tsunami basically in the South and Southeast Asian coast has caused havoc in December 2004, where the tsunami wave basically occurred. All right, we will learn more about the tsunami as we graduate in our higher classes. Tides, tides, you know very well, the rhythmic rise and fall of the ocean, rise and fall of the oceanic water twice in a day. Okay, so that occurs due to either, the gravitational attraction, right, of moon and sun. So interaction of gravitational attraction of moon, sun, and earth. Okay, their relationship, right, causes the rhythmic rise and fall of the oceanic water twice in a day, right, in the form of tide. So there are two types of tides: the spring tide and the neap tide. One tide is, bit higher, another tide is comparatively lower. Okay, let's understand the ocean currents. So ocean currents are basically, you might have heard about different type of ocean currents which are found in the different, oceans. So there are streams of the water which flow constantly on the oceanic surface. For example, right, in the Atlantic Ocean, because there are, the oceans. So one is basically Atlantic Ocean. In the Atlantic Ocean you have the Gulf Stream, okay, or you call them North Atlantic Drift. It is also a ocean current. Okay, then you have, like, many more current like Irminger current. Okay, you have many such more currents. Like that you have the Pacific Ocean. Okay, like that you have the Indian Ocean, where you have the different type of currents. For example, here you have the North Pacific current. Okay, you have Peru current, especially right in the Pacific region. So you have Peru current, or that is called also Humboldt current. Okay, so there are different currents which occur in the basically in the oceans. So these currents basically flows, right, on the surface of the water in a constantly in the single direction. So which is basically called the surface currents. So these currents basically are of two types: warm current and a cold current. The main difference between these currents is basically the warm current means this current is based on the origination from there the current basically originated. For example, the warm current originated from equator or from the region nearby equator, because it is the warmer region. So that means this current basically carry comparatively warm water, isn't it? It carry comparatively warm water, where it can carry this warm water to cold polar region, to the cold polar regions, right? In the similar way, the cold current basically lies near the polar region. Okay, so what will happen if it is lying nearby cold, polar region? That means it is a cold, and this current carry this cold water to the comparatively warmer region, that means towards equator. So what is the significance of carrying this warm water to the colder region, and to the cold water from colder region to the warmer region, to redistribute the the earth's heat, which is basically absorbed through this water, right? The Labrador Ocean current is a cold current, right? So Labrador Ocean current, which basically flows in the Atlantic Ocean. So Labrador also a current of Atlantic Ocean. Okay, it is a cold current, all right. And Gulf Stream, as I told you, it is also called the North Atlantic Drift. It is a warm current because it carries the warm saline water of North Atlantic Ocean towards the Arctic Ocean. All right, let's understand the natural vegetation and the wildlife. So natural vegetation, the definition is, it is the plant life of a region. So it is an assemblage of the plant life which is found in a particular region. So that is called basically the natural vegetation of a particular region. Okay, this natural vegetation are of three types generally: the forest, the grasslands, and the shrubs. Okay, okay, so there is so there is there is a change of the natural vegetation because of changes of the climatic region, right? Because you must understand the forest the forest also may be of different types. Like for example, you may have the rainforest, or you may have the equatorial forest. Okay, here you have the high temperature, high humidity, which causes, right, the the high temperature and high rainfall, which causes the different type of forest. Okay, this type of forest you may have also, for example, deciduous forest. Okay, these deciduous forests are found basically, for example, in India, where you don't have more, you have hardly, right, on an average comparatively lesser rainfall. Here in the equatorial rainfall you have more than 250 centimeters of the rainfall, but in the deciduous forest the rainfall is hardly 100 centimeters, isn't it? So so that means based on the climatic characteristics, right, there is changes of this natural vegetation. The grassland needed comparatively lesser amount of the the rainfall and the climatic conditions. Okay, so forests are generally of six types. The first is basically tropical evergreen forest. Okay, tropical evergreen forest, I'll talk to them forest one by one. Okay, so let's understand first six type forest. The tropical deciduous forest, the temperate evergreen forest, the temperate deciduous forest, the Mediterranean forest, the vegetation, and the coniferous forest. Okay, so let's understand first tropical evergreen forest. So why they are called tropical evergreen forest? Because they are found in the tropical belt. Tropical belt means they are found in between 23° half north to 23° half south. So this range, it is called tropics. So they are found basically predominantly in the tropical region. Okay, they are called evergreen because they don't have the particular shedding season of their leaves. So generally during the lean season the forest basically shed their leaf, but due to the great varieties of the trees which are found in the equatorial or the tropical evergreen forest, right, they are not found in the pure stand. Pure stand means there are multiple species, even hundreds of the species are found in a square kilometer area. So which shows that there is no particular time period in which the trees basically shed their leaf. So there is no particular time. And moreover, the exploitation of these forests are also not very economic, because per unit area these the number of forests or number of types of the species of the forest is much higher, so which require again the greater investment. So they are not also exploitative economic also, right? They do not found in the pure stand, and their height is comparatively much higher, around 50 meters, around 50 meters, right? So they reaches up to 50 meters in search of light. So there is also the canopy cover, right, which is completely covered out, right? So the undergrowth is also somewhat restricted, because there is no reach of the sunlight to the bottom of the forest. And moreover, right, moreover there is also the strategic or the stratification of this forest, right? Some forests are 50 meters, some forests are 40 meters, 30 meters. So there is a the canopies just like this formation. Okay, is one type of tree, another type of tree. So the tallest tree can be of 50 meters, which are basically rises in search of light. Okay, next is tropical deciduous forest. Again, tropical means they are found in the tropical region. Deciduous means they shed their leaves, okay, during a particular season. Let's say during the summer season, during the summer season, so they shed their leaves, right? So that is why they are called deciduous forest, right? Obviously comparatively lesser amount of rainfall is there. For example, monsoonal forests, which are predominantly found in India. Okay, so they shed their leaves during the dry season. Ultimate aim to conserve this water. Okay, then you have the temperate evergreen forest. Temperate means beyond or around 66.5 degree north. So this region is called temperate region or temperate belt. So beyond the tropics, that means 23° half north to 66° half north and south. This region we call it as temperate belt. Okay, so here you will have Another set of evergreen forest. Again, evergreen definition is very clear. There is no such, a particular period in which these trees basically shed their leaves. Okay, so they are sometimes also called mid latitudinal, or they are also located in the mid latitudinal coastal region. Then there is also deciduous forests which are found in the temperate belt, because they shed their leaves in the dry season, as the definition is very clear. The Mediterranean vegetation are found basically in the Mediterranean Sea in the Europe. This Mediterranean vegetation is basically famous, for example, for citrus fruit cultivation, for viticulture, right? So there are different set of vegetation which are found in the Mediterranean vegetation. Okay. Then you have the coniferous. This coniferous forest you might have seen also. They are in this shape, in the conical shape. Okay. They are found along the Tega belt. All right. Then let's understand about the grasslands. So grasslands means they are predominantly grasses occur. Okay, there may be the forest or the trees, but the trees are not that much luxurious as are found basically in the forest. There is predominantly grasses. Okay, and the trees are basically maybe found in a scattered in here and there. These grasslands again are of two types: tropical grasslands and the temperate grasslands. Okay, obviously the tropical grasslands means these grasslands are found in the tropics. That means they are found 23-degree half north and south. Okay, so they are in the tropical belt. But here, you know you must understand, that comparatively lesser amount of rainfall is needed. Okay, and another set of grasslands are found in the temperate belt, so they are called temperate grasslands. They are also called mid latitudinal grasslands, and they are generally found in the interior part of continents. Okay, now these grasslands, right, have been used for grazing purpose. Now these grasslands also have been extensively removed out. Okay, they have been converted into uh, you know uh, farms for growing of food crops. So, or also they are also used for cattle rearing, right, for meat and for uh, milk product related enterprises. So they are also extensively used for cultivation also. Okay, then last you have the thorny bushes. So thorny bushes are found mainly in the dry desert regions. Okay, for example, in the interior regions where the rainfall less than 50 centimeters, right? So there you have basically high amount of aridity or semi-arid region. Okay, so there you won't have the rainfall, so you will have the scanty amount of rainfall, and you will have the scorching heat, right? So there only you have the bushes, thorny bushes, cactus, and you will have the animals and the plants having the special adaptations, right, like waxy leaves, right, without leaves, right? And you have also the different adaptation features in the animals also, right? Like hibernation are found in the basically in the basically in the desert areas, right? In the daytime they don't active, but in the night time they generally active for their food and other things. The plants are also having certain site of the different type of roots where it can reach up to the greater depth in search of the water. Okay, without leaves. Also they have the thorny leaves, right, to protect it, right, to protect themselves from the animals, right, ultimately to conserve the water. So they have different type of adaptation in the basically in the dry desert region. Tundra region, right? So tundra vegetation growth is very limited because they are predominantly found in the predominantly found in the polar regions. Okay, where the temperature and the climatic conditions are very extreme. Okay, you may have completely frozen surface. Okay, the top surface is frozen, so you have permafrost, right? And only very limited amount or limited period, for example for 1 month or 2 months, the permafrost is basically uh, you know uh, melted down and ultimately gave some sort of a different type of vegetation. Okay, but that vegetation itself is very limited to certain to certain areas only. All right, so this is what today we have to cover. We'll meet again tomorrow for our next session. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so what we have covered, let's just recap what we have covered. In the today's class, we have seen the water, right, which is a domain of the water, which is basically known as the hydrosphere, okay, which include the oceans, river, lakes, and etc. And we have seen the forms of the water like water vapor, liquid form, right? And we have seen also the different forms of the precipitation, how the condensation process occur, right? And how the water basically convert into the liquid forms, right? And in what process, right, the circulation of the water basically occurred from land to atmosphere, from atmosphere to you know to the ocean, and from ocean, right, from the land, and from land again to the back to the ocean. So there is process called evaporation, okay. Then we have also seen that the water can be the fresh water and the saline water. The fresh water are generally found in the rivers, ponds, springs, and the glaciers. The saline water are mainly saline, which are found predominantly in the oceans. Okay. The distribution of the water, you can also find out the three-fourths of the water basically covered, or three-fourths of the earth's surface basically covered by the water. Okay. And water is basically very essential for the survival, because you must understand why it is very essential, because it is most vital. We cannot survive, even animals and plants cannot survive without water. And in terms of the distribution of the water, we have seen that around 97% of the water in the oceans, which is saline, 2.5% is basically the fresh water. Out of 2.5%, the glaciers and the ice caps consisting of 69%. Remaining is groundwater 30%, surface water around 1.2%. Out of this 1.2%, you see the ground ice and the permafrost consisting of 69%, the lakes consisting of around 21%, remaining soil moisture 3.8, swamp and the marshes 2.6%, river 0.49%, living things 0.26%, atmosphere is 3%. Okay, there may be movement of the water, but there is a restrictive movement in the ponds and the lakes, because obviously in the restrictive space, right? And the movement of the water generally occurs in the form of waves, tides, and the currents. We have seen what is the wave, right? The rising and falling of the water alternatively in the form of wave. Okay, we have seen the tsunami, right? Then we have seen also tides. Okay, then we have seen the currents. There may be two types of currents: warm current and the cold current, right? The warm current generally flows from equator towards the poles, which carry the warm and saline water towards the poles. The cold current basically comparatively colder basically flows from polar regions to the equatorial region, carry the colder water. And this movement of the water by this warm current and the cold current ultimately redistribute the heat of the earth, or redistribute the heat of the ocean, right? And we have seen also the example of this warm current and the cold current, okay, in terms of natural vegetation and the wildlife. So the natural vegetation is something which is plant life of a region. Okay, there are three types, right? There are three types, which is forest, grassland, and the shrub, right? So we have seen also there are three six types of the forest types: the tropical deciduous, temperate, evergreen, temperate deciduous, Mediterranean, and coniferous. Okay, we have seen also evergreen forest, both tropical and temperate. We have seen the deciduous also, both tropical and temperate. We have seen the Mediterranean vegetation. We have seen also the coniferous forest, right? And then we have seen the grasslands also, the tropical grassland, temperate grasslands. Okay, thorny bushes, tundra vegetations, which are predominantly found in the basically in the polar regions, right? That's all for today. Thank you very much for attending the session. Thank you.